I am forecasting a Biden Electoral College landslide. I believe the election will be called by 3:30 to 4:30 a.m. on November the 3rd for Biden. Meow! Huples cat, a Brit who lives in Canada. I'm going to forecast the American election. And result, today is Halloween, the 31st of October 2020, and I'm going to call the election in the States on November 2nd for the president. Because I think it's important that people have a rational approach to politics, and I think there's a lot of fear-mongering out there screeching about if Trump wins, the left will riot, if Biden wins, the right will riot. I pretty much guarantee that will not be a thing. There may be some rioting, because there's a lot of instability and a lot of social unrest in the United States right now for various reasons. But I don't believe you're on the verge of going into a full-blown civil war. And I do think the focus that people have on that isn't great. What our focus is right now is going to Costco for the first time in about 6 months next week to actually do a supply run, because we're very concerned about national lockdowns in Canada and we're very concerned about food supply. And actually it's Kitty, who's the non-prepper, that actually requested that we do that. She is getting very concerned. Normal people are getting concerned about COVID, about lockdowns, about the economy and about climate. So first off, all elections are the most important election in a lifetime. All elections are the most important. I don't think this one is. I don't see much fundamental difference between the two candidates. They're both very elderly, they're both very white, they both lived lives of privilege, and I don't actually think they represent average Americans, either one of them. And there you go, that's what I think. I don't think it's a big deal. I think if Trump wins, the environment will continue to degrade. I think if Biden wins, the environment will continue to degrade. I don't wish to see the environment degrade. I think it's degraded enough, and I think it could end up killing large numbers of people, if not all of us. But that's just how I view it, and I could easily be wrong. So in 2016, I correctly forecasted that Trump would win by a large majority of electoral college votes. And I did that for various reasons. I did that actually based upon you lot, my subscribers. A large number of you are male, a large number of you are white, a large number of you are Americans, which is why I do American topics. And you might think that foreigners have no right to talk about America. Get over yourselves, you're not that special. And you can talk about me and Canada anytime you like. But the point I'm trying to make is that I am a Bernie bro. I believe firmly in social democracy. I believe that the more democratic institutions are, the more reflective they will be for people's actual needs rather than just a small majority of people. For example, under full-blown communism, it's reflective of what the party hierarchy want. In fascism, it's reflective of what the party and army people want. Military-industrial complex really is in charge. And in a democracy, nobody's in charge, and that doesn't fundamentally work very well. But in a socialist democracy, what you get is accountability on a regular basis via elections that are free and fair and equal, but everybody can take part in them. Now, as we all know, America's been some way away from free and equal elections for quite some time. There's a lot of systemic barriers in America to stop Americans voting. But what is true this year is Americans are voting, and they're voting early. And despite the absolute baseless claims of voter fraud, there is no mail-in voter fraud of any realistic amount in the United States. There is a lot of cheating going on, where Republican people are putting very few poll booths into black areas. There's a whole bunch of cheating going on. Not that the DNC haven't done all that in the past as well, which is why you guys probably need to get an independent electoral college nationally that allows national voting. So voting is one way and one way only, and it has no political involvement. So in 2016, I felt that my subscribers were very enthusiastic for Trump, very unenthusiastic for Clinton. Not only that, when I was on left-wing sites, because I'm a lefty, I did not notice any enthusiasm really at all for Clinton, apart from a large number of quite obvious bots or people being paid to do it. There was no enthusiasm whatsoever for candidate Clinton to become president of the United States. And you can blame whoever you like, you can blame Bernie, you can blame her, in fact she's a woman, you can blame deplorables, but at the end of the day, blame Hillary Clinton. She is the person and she did not get anybody excited for her. However, in 2020, what I'm seeing is, yes, there are people who are defensively strongly pro-Trump. There's a large number of people who are silently not saying anything this year, and that is what I think is going to cause him to not win the election. Simply put, a lot of the voting restrictions that have been put in place to limit DNC votes actually will also put off Republicans. Nobody should be waiting more than 20 minutes to vote. There's no need for it in a modern democracy. But yeah, there's a lot of barriers in place, a lot of things going on. So I don't see any groundswell of support for Trump this year. I really don't. And given the fact that he did not have the majority of Americans vote for him last time, I do think he's in trouble. The polls say that Biden will win nationally. The polls say that Biden will win in the swing states. Most of them, maybe two, he won't get, but they don't really count. It clearly says that Biden is going to win. And yet, they said that in 2016. And there's a lot of political interference with polls. And polls are not necessarily a good thing. I don't think you need to have any polls at all in the 2 weeks before an election, because what they can do is influence people either not to vote because your candidate's easily going to win, or they could influence you to not bother voting because your candidate's not going to win. Polls, by their own very nature, not opinion, but polls of people's opinion nationally and federally and locally, actually are very, very bad for democracy. But there's huge amounts of money to be made from them, and there's huge speculation. So right now, from what I'm gathering, the people who are very pro-Trump, the Trumpsters, really honestly think he's going to have a red tide, he's going to win. That his people are going to walk out on election day and vote for him. They honestly believe that. They honestly believe that Biden is such a failed candidate, which he is, in many ways, that Biden has no chance because of his corruption, his history of lying, his stutter, and his problematic age. Not that he's that much older, 3 years older than Trump. They're both too old, to my opinion, to be president. But anyway, let's not be ageist. So they don't think he's got a chance, and they think Trump's definitely going to win. They're very confident. On the left, very few people support Biden. There are a few, and they're very nervous that he's going to win, but they feel somewhat confident looking at the polls. The vast majority of people who will vote for Joe Biden do not like Joe Biden, do not support Joe Biden, but they are very much motivated by a dislike of the other presidential candidate. They are very energized because of rioting, because of systemic racism, because of economic downturn, because of being cut off from the economic gains that have happened for the last 30 years. It's not just Trump, it happened under Biden and Obama. Very cut off from the gains of wealth and power, and very much fed up. And they see in Donald Trump a candidate, not all of them, but I'm talking about the people who don't like him here, see Donald Trump as very much a cause, a symptom of their own personal distress, however that's caused, and they are tending to vote him out. And so far, the earlier polls do suggest that large numbers of people are motivated to vote. This should be the largest percentage voting turnout for a presidential election in over 100 years in the United States. You're going to see, as long as the votes are actually counted, probably about 70 to 80 to 85% of all adult Americans actually cast a vote this year, which is phenomenal. It shows that people are very energized and excited to vote, but it doesn't. What it shows is fear. What it shows is antipathy to the other side. And that's a problem that could be biting you guys in 2024. So you have the reverse situation in 2016, in my opinion. You have the Trump people very confident. You have the Biden people very unconfident. I think you're going to definitely see that play out in terms of lower voting for Trump and higher voting for Biden. I am forecasting a Biden Electoral College landslide. I believe the election will be called by 3:30 to 4:30 a.m. on November the 3rd for Biden. The reason I believe it is because I absolutely cannot see Donald Trump winning enough of the big early states to actually keep him in power. What he did in 2016 was phenomenal. He really flipped a whole bunch of states that are normally blue. And they're going back to be blue. And they're gonna go blue. But in terms of this year, we're also seeing a lot of states go blue that are normally red. Now, why is this? Well, it's the economy, stupid, is the normal answer. And yes, that is part of this. But it's actually COVID. And the COVID factor, whether you believe in COVID or not, it's real, is playing out in many, many elections all across the world. So let's have a little look at a gubernatorial race, and you can see how the attack on the incumbent is devastating if the incumbent has not took the pandemic seriously.
Well, perhaps Senator Perdue would have been able to respond properly to the COVID-19 pandemic if you hadn't been fending off multiple federal investigations for insider trading. It's not just that you're a crook, Senator. It's that you're attacking the health of the people that you represent. You did say COVID-19 was no deadlier than the flu. You did say there would be no significant uptick in cases. All the while, you were looking after your own assets and your own portfolio, and you did vote 4 times to end protections for pre-existing conditions. 4 times. And the legislation that you tout, the PROTECT Act, it includes loopholes that specifically allow insurance companies to deny policies to Georgians with pre-existing conditions. Can you look down the camera and tell the people of this state why you voted 4 times to allow insurance companies to deny us health coverage because we may suffer from diabetes or heart disease or asthma or have cancer in remission? Why, Senator?
The American Chamber of Commerce is a very powerful organization. They're the biggest financial lobby group in the United States. Now, I don't believe in any lobbying. I think people should not be able to give money to a political candidate or party. You should not give them any money at all, and they should be funded by a direct system from the federal government. So nobody has a financial advantage over anybody else to promote their message. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair. I think it allows power to accumulate at the top and be taken away from the bottom. However, in the United States, the American Chamber of Commerce is the biggest cash donor to politicians. Bribes, if you like. And over this year, they have switched allegiance from their traditional support of Republicans, both at presidential and at state and local level, to Democrats. Now, the Democrats that they're supporting are Biden Democrats, which makes Trump's attacks on Biden as a socialist quite ridiculous, because he really is a neo-capitalist. He really isn't a socialist. He's kind of voted against socialism his entire career. And American Chamber of Commerce wants and is financing a Joe Biden win and a DNC win. That's terrible news for the Trump campaign. This isn't Antifa. This isn't lefty people like me giving money to The Intercept or whatever. This is the American Chamber of Commerce, the normal one, the female one, and of course the LGBTQ one, giving it to the DNC, giving their funding from their businesses to the DNC. Literally voting for Biden with money is business in America. That is bad news for Donald Trump. But even worse is his tone-deaf approach to COVID. Now, I know a lot of people think he's done huge things for COVID, including himself. He has done almost nothing. I'm talking as a registered nurse in Canada. He's done very little to actually suppress the infections in the United States. And so we're just going to give you a little montage of some approaches. First up will be a right-wing conservative politician in England called Boris Johnson, who today has announced that the entire country is being locked down. You'll then see a neo-capitalist, not a socialist, politician called Justin Trudeau, talking about how he actually thinks about this pandemic and what it means to him. And then you will see a little montage of how Donald Trump is currently, judge people on their current actions, not their past, is saying and promoting and talking about COVID-19 compared to his rival.
In this country, alas, as across much of Europe, the virus is spreading even faster than the reasonable worst-case scenario of our scientific advisors, whose models, as you've just seen, now suggest that unless we act, we could see deaths in this country running at several thousand a day, a peak of mortality, alas, bigger than the one we saw in April. And so now is the time to take action, because there is no alternative. And from Thursday until the start of December, you must stay at home. You may only leave home for specific reasons, including for education, for work, let's say if you cannot work from home, for exercise and recreation outdoors with your household or on your own with one person from another household, for medical reasons, appointments, and to escape injury or harm, to shop for food and essentials, and to provide care for vulnerable people or as a volunteer. I'm afraid non-essential shops, leisure and entertainment venues will all be closed, though click and collect services can continue and essential shops will remain open, so there's no need to stock up. Pubs, bars and restaurants must close except for takeaway and delivery services. Workplaces should stay open where people can't work from home, for example, in the construction and manufacturing sectors. Single adult households can still form exclusive support bubbles with one other household, and children will still be able to move between homes if their parents are separated. I'm under no illusions about how difficult this will be for businesses which have already had to endure such hardship this year, and I'm truly, truly sorry for that. And that's why we're going to extend the furlough system through November. The furlough scheme was a success in the spring. It supported people and businesses in a critical time. We will not end it. We will extend furlough until December. Christmas is going to be different this year, perhaps very different, but it's my sincere hope and belief that by taking tough action now, we can allow families across the country to be together.
We're in an unprecedented global pandemic that really sucks. It's tough going through this second wave. It's frustrating having shut down all of us, our lives through the spring, and now be forced to make more difficult choices and knowing that it's going to be a tough winter ahead as well. It's easy for us to want to throw up our hands. I think we have to ask ourselves who we really are as Canadians. Are we really good neighbors? Are we really people who care about the most vulnerable, about each other? I know we are. And it doesn't mean we're going to be perfect every step of the way, and it does mean we have to continually remind ourselves to follow public health advice. But I know Canadians can get through this together. And yes, we've seen rises in cases here and there. We've also seen flattening of the curve in other places. We know we can do this. We've done it before. And it's frustrating to have to explain to your kids in many parts of the country, like here in Ottawa, that we're not going to be trick-or-treating this weekend. And it's frustrating knowing that unless we're really, really careful, there may not be the kinds of family gatherings we want to have at Christmas. But we will get through this. Vaccines are on the horizon. Spring and summer will come, and they will be better than this winter. It's frustrating to have to go through this situation. Nobody wanted 2020 to be this way. But we do get to control how bad it gets by all of us doing our part. This sucks. It really, really does. But we're going to get through it by doing what Canadians always do. By pulling together, by working hard, and by knowing that better days are coming.
Rounding the corner, it's going away.
And a safe vaccine that eradicates the virus and quickly ends the pandemic. Normal life will fully resume. That's all we want. We want normal life.
The White House Science Policy Office lists ending the pandemic as one of what it calls the top accomplishments of the president's first term.
What?
We reached out to the White House and asked if they had any response to the president's continued use of such language. Here is what they said. Quote, President Trump's actions have ensured that our country will defeat the virus and safely reopen. The risks today are dramatically lower than they were only a few months ago, with mortality rates falling over 80%. Operation Warp Speed has led to treatments to help patients recover quickly and soon. We'll have a safe and effective vaccine with up to 100 million doses this year and hundreds of millions early next year. The Trump administration has also surged testing, PPE, personnel, and capacity to protect the vulnerable, help schools reopen, and respond to conditions on the ground.
This is a mask. It prevents the spread of coronavirus. This is not a political statement. It's a mask.
With his fight for re-election hinging on his handling of the coronavirus, President Trump is attempting to pull his supporters into a state of pandemic denialism, falsely claiming that the rising number of COVID-19 cases are due to increased testing.
You turn to the news, COVID, 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 COVID. And, cases are up. Why are cases up? Because we test more than anybody in history.
But that's not true. And neither is the president's other jaw-dropping conspiracy theory that doctors in the U.S. are manufacturing a high death toll so they can make more money.
Our doctors get more money if somebody dies from COVID. You know that, right? I mean, our doctors are very smart people.
The president warns Democrat Joe Biden will shut down the country, even national holidays, if he's elected.
There will be no school, no graduations, no weddings, no Thanksgivings, no Christmas, no 4th of July.
Biden says the president is just making it all up.
I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm going to shut down the virus.
The president is back to mocking masks, poking fun at Fox News personality Laura Ingraham for wearing one.
Hey, are you wearing a mask? I've never seen her in a mask. She's being very politically correct.
By contrast, Biden is making masks an essential part of his pandemic battle plan.
This isn't a political statement. It's patriotic duty, for God's sake. But still, Donald Trump refuses to listen to science.
And they say you can only have 250 people. So they thought I'd cancel. But I'm not canceling.
The president's eldest son, Don Jr., is also complaining about the pandemic's impact on the race with his own lies about the number of cases and deaths in the U.S.
Why aren't they talking about this? Oh, because the number is almost nothing. Because we've gotten control of this thing. We understand how it works.
That's nowhere near true, as there were nearly 1,000 deaths Thursday as the number of cases in the U.S. hit a record high. But clinging to COVID-19 exaggeration appears to run in the family, as the president is claiming the treatment he received for his own bout with the virus was akin to being touched by God.
When he loses in a landslide on November 3rd, Donald Trump will lose because of incompetence. He has been incompetently dealing with pandemics since the beginning. The United States death rate is minimally 3%. 2/3 of them are the elderly, 1/3 of them is not. Enough people have had COVID-19 in the United States and have died from COVID-19 and have been hospitalized in the United States to make any underplaying or trivialization of those deaths political suicide. And yet. So I hope you like that. I mean, basically, I don't have a clue and I'm talking out my bottom. What I'm talking about is what I'm getting a sense from my subscribers. What I'm talking about is the money that's being switched to Biden. What I'm talking about is the effect of COVID-19. The vast majority of United States citizenship believe that COVID-19 is a very real pandemic and believe that they are very personally endangered from it. You may not believe in the pandemic. You may not believe in the virus. You may not think that. Bear in mind, it doesn't matter what you think. In an election on a reasonably democratic model, what matters is what most people think. And I do think a lot of people are telling pollsters that they're going to vote Trump and because they voted for Trump in 2016, but actually are either not going to vote or are going to walk in the voting booth and vote for somebody other than Trump. There you have it. We shall find out. On a personal level, if Donald Trump wins or Biden wins, I don't really care. I'm Canadian. I can't see the world maintaining its current level of consumption and stability for much longer anyway. I think Biden's right. This is going to be a dark winter. But I think he's wrong. And I think Trudeau's wrong. It's going to be a dark winter. A winter that's going to last several years. The economy is going to go into the tank in about 6 to 9 months' time. The governments will run out of stimulation. There will be a major economic burden to be faced by the peoples. We have to get together on a local level and work together with people who support people like Donald Trump and people that support people like Biden and people that support people like Bernie and the majority of people who don't support anybody. We have to work with them. We have to be resilient. We have to have structures in place to make sure we can have clean water, clean air and decent food. We can't rely on government to provide that. Government cannot even deal with a simple pandemic in a rational and reasonable way. None of the governments have been locking down in a rational, safe way in the West. None of the governments have provided PPE in the West in an adequate way. It's a big shambles. It's showing that many, many decades of greed and capitalism and consumption have rendered the West completely unable to deal with setback. Once they're unable to throw money at it to make it disappear, They throw money at it, it's not disappearing. They don't know what to do. They're stuck. Anyway, take it easy. Enjoy the election. Don't get emotionally involved in this. Honestly, Donald Trump and Joe Biden don't care about you at all. Not at all. I actually do. I love you all. Be safe, be kind, don't get bent out of shape about stuff you can't control. Control what you can. Think about the future in a rational way, not clouded by ideology or clouded by fear of the virus. Think about where we're going, how we're going to get there, what the world's going to be like depending on who the figurehead president is, it doesn't matter. The military-industrial complex, the billionaires control all our lives in all the Western countries and most of the world. That's not going to change on November 3rd. Peace.